Very warm welcome to you and some of our aspiring students of this batch, and of course all of our tech team and faculty members and everyone who made this show possible today. Allow me to thank Jeongki for visiting us, visiting India, visiting Mumbai, visiting at the Skill Tech University. Is it your first time to India or you've been?
It's my third time.
A third time?
Yeah.
And I hope it's not the last. So please keep coming and interacting with all the lovely students. I'm always very, very intrigued by the journey people take. How do you get where you got? Having served in the military, having had your own tech startup, having actually studied public policy and international relations. And I saw some of your much younger Jeongki at the forefront of voicing your opinions and actually campaigning at the university for a show that possibly no one turned up for or something.
Human rights, yeah.
Really, it is a zigzag kind of a journey, isn't it? Not really as straight as we hope sometimes life turns out. What really got you there? How did it start? How much of it was planned? How much of it was you chanced upon? What was the adventure?
Well, I think it's just like many folks often experience. It's like, if you look back, it looks like a wonderful bios and journey. Of course, there are many moments of feeling loss and anxiety. I think that's just part of the journey itself, and you kind of learn to embrace it. But I come from the family of public servants. I've been always inspired and think about the questions of like, what is my generation's task? My previous generations have done so much. What is my generation's task, and what can we do? And then I think I've been always interested in different ways I can make an impact. So whether I'm working in a public policy side, whether I'm working in institutions and governments and militaries, or in the tech innovations and other aspects of it, I've been always thinking about it as a mechanism, a methodology of change. So within that journey, of course, I come across methods of data science and data analytics has been kind of pretty significant aspects of developments of field in both corporate management and organizational management in the past 20 years or so, especially in the United States. And with that background, with combination with Parsons, I started thinking about the field of computational creativity around 10 years ago. So that kind of led to some of the evolution of today's projects.
While you're talking about the impact you wanted to create, much of the young ones in the room are barely about 15 or 16, I imagine. Of course, we are recording this, so this is also going to be, parents and much older audience is going to listen to us later. But what is it? I mean, everyone sitting out here wants to create an impact, right? Would you agree, everyone? Right? I mean, that's pretty much the core of our being. What's your one message to all those young ones who are looking for a purpose, want to create an impact? What should they be doing? What should they be thinking?
I think it's really in today's age of information age, we have access to all the world's newspapers and constant streams of news that we're able to tap in our chest pocket and shoulder. And with the systematic crisis that's happening in the world, I think it's very easy to feel dejected and unable to do anything about it. But the reality in the world is not like that. Even though there are systematic crises, only way that one can make differences is by individual taking actions and be strategic in what we do. So even though as we open our phone, the world seems to be lost, it's okay. The world has been always that way to an extent. Our previous generation fought even greater challenges than the one we face right now. So other aspects is to keep that hope and they're able to work on it with enthusiasm.
I'm going to swing, before I come to AI, I want to talk a little bit about design. And design means different things to different people. Many of us have seen design as, possibly the water bottle that we are holding or the microphone or products that we see around, to today to design being referred to as something that impacts behavior, organizations. I really want to know, how did design happen to you, or you happen to design, and what does a design even mean to you? Not so much by way of definition, but and how have you seen it transform over time? Sorry, too many questions in one, but I'm taking the liberty. And where do you see design headed? And by the way, if I may, a lot of people tend to think of design as a creative activity, which is possibly not for them. I'm not sure how many in the room think design is for them. Often we start to say, you know what, I can't make a straight line, so design's not for me. So what is your best message to them? Couple of questions all rolled into one.
Yeah, but they're all interconnected. They're all part of the part of the way we think about it. I think one of the aspects of what I learned from in the world of design, which intersected with my careers and when I was doing entrepreneurship in the context of design world, in the context of design methodology, and what I mean by that is the field of design has evolved that no longer we just focus on how we make things and do things and products that we engage. The process and the way that those things are made can be also understanding that process of making and developing and sustaining can also be applied in other domains. So specifically, kind of the field that I'm in is looking at how our organization function, how our society work, what are the different types of interventions and things can really kind of foster the growth of those organizations and others. So this is the kind of terminologies of kind of ideas of thinking about broader systems. And within those systems, how can we design interventions? How can we design policies? How can we design organization? How can we start a business in a sustainable way? So you can see the field of design has expanded beyond just let's make a wonderful shoe. But the knowledge that we gain from the process that we understand of developing a shoe can be applied into other things in that domain context itself. So in that expensive view of design, you may not be the person with the straight line when you're drawing and doing the drawing techniques, but your inability to make a straight line might be really useful if you were going to start a new business.
So let's say you talked about the art of the process of making a pair of shoes. How do I take that into designing an organization? Just exactly how I'd go about making a shoe.
So I actually do have a colleague who specializes in like developing shoes. Based on the way I understand it is how the making of the shoes start with understanding first, where's the need? I want to walk across this specific terrain. Maybe it's a rainy day. You're able to survive rainy days and walk. I need an instrument. I need something that can protect my feet from the ground and wetness and other things. So there's an identification of a need. From that point of a material exploration, what are the resources that exist that can go into? What are the things that's going to fit in? So there's an aspects of usability testing and design. Iterate on those designs as I'm trying to put on the shoes and go on. And then those prototype development also leads to, okay, now I was able to make one shoe. Can I make 2 shoes? Can I make 4 pairs? Can I actually create a systems where this shoe production can happen? So now I'm thinking about supply chain, marketing, hiring people. Can this shoe be beyond just serving the initial need of me not getting wet on a wet road, but rather, can this be also a vehicle for change? Can I come up with a new business strategy where development of shoes that I can also donate to another shoes with those with less need? Then you start building out what is simply an artifact of shoe can actually represent a different kinds of world that we want to live in. So in that context, the process of identifying the need to understanding the constraints and resources leading to developing an initiatives and applying can also be applied in organizational design, startups, and other aspects of it.
I'm never looking at my shoe the same way again. There's another thing about transdisciplinary design. We've talked about multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and interdisciplinary design. One is, are they the same thing? But broadly put, if it is about talking about different disciplines of design all at once, could you cite examples of how it really plays out in real life, possibly real examples?
Yeah, I would consider when we come across this disciplinary jargons, I think oftentimes it's also seems to be they're all kind of mixed and mashed in a different way. But in the world of academia, it's trying to point out a specific functions and things. So as one would able to see, interdisciplinary usually means an interaction between 2 different disciplines. So whether it's a business and marketing with liberal arts and sociologies that cross also means going across those two domains, how the world can be relevant. And of course, multidisciplinary means just multiple aspects of it. But what we start to find out is that just like how the world of design has been expanded, also in the field of academia, whether it's a natural science or social science, is start to understand that there are different forms of knowledge that specific disciplines and domain is incapable of addressing. We live in a society now with complex challenges. And when I talk about complexity, I'm not just talking about the traffic in Mumbai that I've been experiencing. That is incredibly complex challenges. And I talk about it as complex challenges is because it's not just the decision-making of one driver can make a difference. It's not the installations of one traffic light is going to make a difference. The systems, the situation that we see there has multiple layers and interacting players that contributed to the phenomenon that we're seeing right now. So in order to address that, how can we go about it? Maybe we need a technique from anthropologies to understand what those drivers think, to understand where the police officers come, to understand from the perspective of civilians who are not civilians, the pedestrians who are walking through. We need also urban planners to think about the overall traffic flow of the situation. We need automakers to come in to think about how can we create a car with features that is more safe. We need policymakers to think about economic development of the field. We need housing advocates to come in able to defend for the rights of the peoples on the street at the same time. What are different ways that they can have a sustainable economies and housing for in the long term? All different disciplines coming in, you can see, to tackle on a complex issues and things. That I start to see is a knowledge being produced in that work. There's an element of transdisciplinarity. So not just a crossing the field, but combining and mix and matching in a different way of these methodologies and domain can lead to a knowledge that sits beyond just existence of one domain itself. But that is an example of looking at engaging with the complex phenomena of a traffic patterns in Mumbai. The world is full of complex challenges and phenomena exist. So in that context, it could be in the natural science that has a transdisciplinary focuses of research to something more immediate like that.
You talked about complex problems. You cited the traffic, and believe me, traffic could be a problem anywhere in the world. I've had children come from very small cities and traffic's still a problem, right? So is it in Mumbai. And we decided to have this event at 9 in the morning so you could dodge the traffic. Trust me, that was the one big reason why. But having said that, if there was one problem the world could solve through design, possibly or otherwise, whether it's climate change, and I heard one of your videos that you talked about quite passionately about climate change. What do you think would be that one problem you'd say, wow, this needs to get sorted? And it did.
This needs to be solved and hasn't?
And it did. Maybe one day you look back and say, wow, we sorted climate change, we sorted traffic, we sorted what?
Yeah. I mean, I think we made a pretty good advancement in public health for many parts of the world. In terms of, I mean, we're now, lo and behold, we thought we were able to beat back some of the diseases like measles, MMR, and different aspects. There are complex challenges of both public health that engage public participation and medical health. Like, we made a significant advancement that people in the past didn't know that these diseases can be contained and managed. That is a complex design problem that people are able to address and actually able to make a huge dent of it. Now we live in a different informational ecosystem where participation of those public health initiatives are kind of pushed back. So measles and mumps would be one of those cases that I would consider as a complex design problem. That has been able to. We thought we solved it, but not anymore. It's coming back now, especially in the United States.
That I didn't know,
yeah.
But thank you for that. And before I bring AI into the room, my last possible question on pure design or design is that you've been leading a program called the Strategic Design Management, and we offer that program right here at Atlas as well. Simply put, what is strategic design management? Is it strategy through design and business? Is it the design of business, the business of design? How would you? And if you could cite a few examples, that will help.
Yeah, I think the field of strategic design and management is an evolving field, but it recognitions of precisely as you mentioned, Bulbul, is two things has been a predominant kind of focus. One, it has been the business of design as we think about creative industries, whether it's a product designs or fashion design, like what are the behind the scenes that's happened. So in filmmaking, it's pretty established way of thinking. There's a film creative directors and there are film producers, and producers make things happen. Creative directors are ones able to kind of artistically shape a project. Like that's a very binary way of looking at it. So in a context of that, one can say strategic design management engage a lot with the business of the creative industry. Flip side of that is the design of business. Now, if we were to understand that everything that's been made here was a conscious choices that we have made, if that is the case, can we also come up with a way, as we think about the way of running things and managing things, can that be also designed a different way? If I'm making a film company, can I create a film company that actually does not repeat the stereotype that exists in the society? Can I make a film company that's able to push back on pre-existing notions of what gender role is, or can I also create an economic structure within my film company that line workers and they're actually able to be compensated fairly as I'm managing these projects? And that's just one example of a film company that is operating that way. Think about that not just in the context of a shoes or any other types of businesses and organization. Can we bring in the value of sustainability or social justice and other things that you have? In what way can we manifest those values in the intangible things that happens in the societies around us? And I would consider that as a design of business.
And that's what we deal with in strategic design management. I'll probably bring in AI into the room now because you talked about design thus far. I'm also going to request all the students and everyone else attending to possibly think of the questions that you may want to ask at a later point. We will take questions later. AI is going to hamper creativity in the long run, or is it going to foster creativity? And if you're really to take one stance.
Hamper or
foster or encourage creativity?
I think in order to think about the future, I think it's important for us to think about what are we doing. If we as a creative professionals actively engage in what this technology is and learn it and then encourage it in a certain way of using it, also contribute to the development of these technologies in a meaningful way that aligns with our creative values. If that is the case, I think the AI will foster creative industries and creative work. If we just raise a white flag and say, go ahead, Silicon Valley, you take it, you run it. We're not going to participate in how this technology is developed. We're not going to participate in how this AI governance and laws are being made. Then I think we have a very bleak future.
This one I'm going to read out because I don't want to miss the essence of the question. So recently in the UK, a group of artists protested against AI-generated art by releasing a silent album. A powerful gesture against creative dilution. Is AI stealing intellectual property, or is it just remixing it like a DJ? What does fair credit look like in this new creative economy? And I remember you had a slide on fair with the AI highlighted.
The short answer of that is that current way the AI systems functions and operated and how it was released in the market did not take into account at all of the creative professional who have contributed those work. So a lot of the AI system that we're engaging in, it is operating on either publicly available information and data that was shared on the internet, and also without compensations and licenses, a lot of the systems are trained on the works and labors of creative professionals. I think there's no questions about that. However, even in the field of art and music and entertainment, how do we define what is considered as a transformative to be applied and IP to come into? Most of these discussions has been limited to different countries and states and legal laws and cases operate to define those intellectual properties and rights, and how they define how much of the transformations happen. Those are very much an active, ongoing debates and policy makings and court cases that's happening right now in the context of AI. So it's complicated. But in this complicated scenario, that does not mean that these things has been determined already. Meaning, even though the current system, a lot of the AI systems that we're familiar with are using data sets that was using the existing creators' works and data sets, even though they operated that way, because a lot of the standards and norms are being developed right now, we have an opportunity to make differences in terms of coming up with a more fair compensation models that can actually help the creative professionals and their work to be preserved and protected in this technological landscape. If we organize and if we make an action within our local setting and within the national domains. But the counter point that we do have to consider, and this happened in the field of photography in the context of the United States. When the photography was first invented, there were court cases that talk about where and what you take photo is actually okay. And there was a court cases that debated on this idea that can I take a picture on the street and street people? Am I legally allowed to do that? And there was a question of it. There was a court case, and there was debating on that question itself. And the answer from the legal law precedent's perspective has come to was actually those are public and fair way of using artistic work in a public spaces. Therefore, you can take pictures on the street. You can take pictures on the people in the street. Those things are okay. Imagine in the context of US and art, the court and legal precedent was set in a different way. Of course, laws are not always able to contain what people do, but if the legal precedent was set in a way that folks are unable to take pictures on the streets and people take pictures of people on the street. If that happened, the field of photography would have been developed very different way, sometimes probably even hampered in terms of artistic expressions and work. So it's a fine balance and nuance that we have to bring in. This technology is being evolved, this technology is being developed in connection to, inherently connected to creative labors and rights and work. At the same time, in what way can we make sure that both the creative expressions and the works are protected in that ecosystem? How are they compensated in that environment? At the same time, how can we make sure that any legal precedents and laws that we create is not hampering a development in new types of artistic practice and computational practice? And these are, as you can see, one tangled mess of the questions and things that we need all the talents in the room to start tackling on.
I'm also reflecting upon something slightly different, which was the sound of silence. So I'm going to read this as well because I don't want to get the figures wrong. But recently, an Italian artist, I think Salvatore Garau, sold an invisible sculpture practically for nothing, which was basically sold a wall really for about $18,000. And yet another artist, Maurizio, I don't know how many of you know that about the banana that he stuck on the wall with duct tape, right? And apparently that's sold for $6 million. In a world which is drowned in content and information and Instagram and just about a lot of information, solicited and otherwise, and visual noise, what is the value of emptiness? And really, how should design evolve in this clutter and sameness, especially when AI accelerates visual repetition?
And also homogenization. You will see, one would say, if you're less, when the person does not have visual accuracy, have done a lot of the types of illustrations and drawing, those people have more, visual sense than those who don't, right? So it's just people who have done more writing have more literary sense than who hasn't. And I think the phenomena that I see is, if we don't have the expertise on this area, what AI system produce seems to be, oh, that's actually pretty good. So from my perspective, it's new and interesting and useful. But I see a lot of works that generated by AI system. I see a lot of writing that is generated by a large language model. And based on my lived experience of looking at those, many of those works are very boring, and also stylistically it's very they're all just kind of diluting the existing pool of images and context and things that exist. So from my fields and domain perspective, a lot of those things are not new, not useful, not surprising at all. But only way then, how our students or as a society, we can develop something new is within the context that we engage in, to seek for, to understand how I'm going to practice and do things in a hard way to develop something new and useful. So in the context of those conceptual arts, whether it's highly valuing, which is a critique on social patterns, social phenomenon, about silence or absurdity of certain types of work, resonates in a context of the society that we live right now. We, in that case, I think it's less of a we, the art world, the art critics are finding that interesting in this context. And that has value. Does it have an individual artistic values of a skill sets of a work? Probably not. But a conceptual piece has a value. But in the broader sense in the world, that might be what artistic community thinks. But I think in the broader society and work, that types of conceptual work has a very sliver of values as a one types of statement. That doesn't mean that we in the artistic and design community always just be working on a conceptual criticism as our main types of domains and work. I don't think so. There's so many aspects of a creative industry in the work that go beyond just conceptual critiques of a social phenomenon. Rather, I will be more interested in developing a new way of doing things, whether it's a shoe, whether it's a businesses, whether it's a computational art piece.
Would you buy one?
A banana.
One of those art, yeah, possibly.
I don't think I have money. As an academic, I don't think I have money to buy a conceptual art piece banana, but I can enjoy a banana.
So I wonder, what are you going to tell the young ones who are listening? They've seen a little bit more than many of us saw in our lifetime. I think they saw one big shock, which was, if I can call one, which was COVID. And I don't think anyone's seen anything like that before. Is AI the big disruptor? Possibly yes, possibly no. But really, how do they prepare themselves for tomorrow? What are the most important human skills that sometimes taken for granted that we should embrace? What's the future like?
I think that idea about authenticity is already emerging as a kind of key values already in social media patterns and things people seek for. It's like, no, I don't need a stylized things. Actually, I want to see real people. And I think in this age of just computational, synthetic, plasticky generated things, already our human taste, especially emerging generations, are inclined towards that. I think that's the beauty of youth, right? Each generation say, we don't like what's going on. We have to do something different. Lean into that instincts. Don't rely on large language model to do things for you. Do things that can supersede what large language model can do. Do certain things, practice things, do it with your hands, talk to people, knock on doors, see things, experience things that machine cannot do. There's only so much the automation and machine system can engage and able to do and think like they can do. But we as humans, we experience things a totally different way. We talk about multimodal like AI system. We're trillion in different types of vectors and models. Like we have so many different ways to experience and do things. And that experience is oftentimes push us to explore something new and then develop and transform industries and systems itself. Not through regurgitations or derivative aspects of existing knowledge that was found on the internet.
You said authenticity, and that's one thing that we've also been talking about considerably. Sometimes when we look at a portfolio, we say we're happy to see an imperfect, authentic portfolio, but than to see a perfect portfolio where I can't see you. And I know you've been looking at students' portfolios over the last few days, and particularly yesterday. Of course, there were portfolios of senior students, I think in the third year. What are the three things you look for in a portfolio?
Yeah, I look for stories. I look for struggles. I look for how you engage with that struggles. Portfolio, I mean, even in the professional world, we always joke about, oh, my portfolio is never done. So I'm going to work on my portfolio. It's never done. Because what portfolio is to an extent, it's just a picture. It's just a snapshot of what it is. But where you at? But there's a way that I think portfolio can capture the stories of your capacities and potential. And I think that's what's kind of key in the context of education or in context of professional field, what portfolio can do. Like, does it capture the story? Does it capture the story of capacity that this person is able to engage and tackle on and do something, try something different, and then fail, but it's okay, but they're going to evolve? If that story is there, then that's I want to talk to. That's who I want to be building a community with. If the portfolio is picture perfect and perfectly done, then it looks like everything else. So then there's no stories, and I'm not interested in that plasticky thing.
So story is struggle, and how do you deal with the struggle? I'm really tempted to ask, could you think of an example where you saw something may possibly have been here, somewhere else, back in Parsons, a good story that seems quite dramatic, but a compelling struggle, and how you deal with the struggle?
Yeah, even the project that I saw yesterday, this is a project that was in ISDI that was talking about how can we develop engaging with people who are blind. How can we develop a systems where those people, the blind people, is able to take medicines? And the current way of doing medicines requires a lot of visual senses to see it, measure it, put it in a box, and then they kind of bring the syringe. So they develop a new system working with community organizations and partners, develop a system a blind person can take medicine very easily using sound. That presentation wasn't like a beautifully presented deck to show on. That presentation showed iterations of different prototypes and failure that it went to incrementally how this thing has changed. And of course, at the end, there's like a 3D renderings of what a product can look like conceptually, because it's in the production stage and they're trying to develop. But it was fascinating to see the story of how they engaged on this issue, how they engage with people who are blind, visiting those community centers, and then working with them side by side to develop and prototype this new product and services, and failing it, right? I have broken bottles and things was also there to demonstrate what did not work. And it's messy. It's there. There's a story there. There's a struggle there. There's a capacity there. There's stories of empathy, why they care. So I will consider that as a great portfolio.
My last question before I come to this last section, which is rapid fire. So we've got students here who are studying the Atlas Parsons curriculum. And of course, many of them signed up also to study an international curriculum right here in India. But what's the biggest takeaway for them, or the biggest advantage of studying an international curriculum right here in India with an Indian context?
I think it opens an opportunity for a different perspective. And this, I think, is important no matter where you are in the world. I think the privilege and opportunity of living in a city like Mumbai and studying in a city like Mumbai already brings in so many different cultures and perspectives. I mean, in 1 week, I'm trying different restaurants and trying to eat something, but I'm out of my meal and stomach spaces to try all different foods and tastes, and the cultural diversity exists. It cannot be even captured in one meal or a week of meals. Imagine that in the context of your education. You can get perspectives from rich cultures in one countries and one way of looking at it, but you can be exposed to a lot of different ways that people think, different canons of thoughts, different expectations and cultural norms that come into thinking about things and engaging with issues. I think that's the value of oftentimes these types of international curriculum. It gives you the opportunity to think about it from a different perspective while you're situated within this ground.
I'm going to come to the last section, which is rapid fire. And I just thought of one right away. One word for Bombay, other than food.
Beep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got 2 more questions, but they've come from much younger people in my team. So I'll play along. K-pop or K-drama?
K-pop.
Do you want to say why?
I think I grew up with the ballad songs and things. It's like, I'm from Seoul. So I grew up with a man moaning about the love, and those things are still part of my identity. Things you play on in a long car drive, yeah.
So Shrishti, I have to tell you this, I had no idea what K-pop was, right? Till I looked at so many portfolios over the last few years that had just K-pop and more K-pop. So I behaved like I knew it, right? To a point that I can pull it off. Okay. There's another one, similar, BTS or Blackpink?
Well, I guess BTS, but I don't think my app's going to ever look like that.
Okay, now these are slightly academic. AI in one word.
Hope.
Hope. Design in one word.
It's 3 words. Underground. Underground.
Underground.
Underground. Like
Okay.
in the world. Underground.
Okay, got that. Your time in the military, you're being a tech entrepreneur, you're being an educator. Which one's closest and why? So more than one word actually.
Well, right now I'm an educator, so that's pretty, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure, I don't know what's next though, so we'll see.
This question, there are 3 people who debated several times, right? And there's a cut, cross, this, that. The original one, permit me to say this, Abhi, says Squid Game or Game of Thrones. Vitaman said Game of Thrones is an adult or whatever. So it became, Anando is in the room. So finally, Anando said Squid Game or Friends.
So am I making choice?
Mm-hmm.
Squid Game a game versus Squid Game and
Game
of Thrones or Friends?
Game of Thrones is out for, I haven't seen any of these.
So. The Friends as in the show, the Friends. I mean, obviously there's Friends, come on. Have you seen Squid Game? Oh, I mean, then we would have not be making these references.
The Friends.
They're friends in the Squid Game. It does not end well. It's very dark.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right. The one design career that didn't exist 5 years ago, but will be big in the next 5 years.
Yeah, the AI system designer.
AI system designer. Okay. The one skill that every student must learn today to be future ready.
Connection.
Connection. Okay. AI fueling or depleting creativity?
Depends.
That wasn't a choice, but I'll take it. What's the one mistake most young designers make when entering the industry, and how can they fix it? It's more than one word.
One mistake they make.
Mm-hmm.
I say they gotta think long. Not short term, think long. Where is your creative practice evolving? What is your artistic voice? Where is your creative work? How you want to make an impact that's going to go beyond just the immediate jobs and tasks at hand.
So you spoke about how AI can be used for fighting the existing biases, but I'd like to cite an example. So Amazon used an AI model to hire people to go through their portfolios and resumes, and years later it was found that AI was actually biased against women just for being women, and then they hired more males essentially, regardless of their accomplishments or how good they were in their respective fields. And this proves that AI has a lot of biases, not against just women, but against particular races, particular ages as well. So how do you think we can fight bias with AI when AI itself is biased?
Mm-hmm. So how can we fight biases when AI system itself is biased? Yeah, I think one of the aspects of this situation, beyond like, I wouldn't consider it a low hanging fruit, but medium hanging fruit is like, let's build like an AI system with the different types of parameters and data sets so that the AI system is not leaning towards these kind of biases based on gender. I think that's technical medium level question. I think what AI systems in those cases are showing is not just that the engineer made a mistake. AI is to an extent, and I talk about it in my classes too, it's a dialectic artifact, meaning it reveals and shows what society is. We have gender gap issues even before we develop Amazon develops a resume sorting system. So in fact, what AI systems is showing has been the problem that we've been engaging in all the time, but now it's more apparent. We can literally see with these social expectations, with these biases, when people are making these decisions, they tend to award a certain gender. So how can we tackle that? That's a bigger question. It's not just an engineering question. This is where multiple fields and transdisciplinary work comes in. So if we are really, what Amazon AI system is able to show is that actually, not just in AI system is oftentimes reflecting society. It is a gender gap in these types of biased decisions they're making. In what way, in a multiple level, can we engage to develop a society and system that does not result in these ways? So you gotta go more than engineering. You gotta engage in policies and education and work. And I think one thing also I'm learning with the measles and smallpox example, we think that we solved the problem with one initiative, but these dragons and demons continues to rise each generations. So in what way can we come up with a contemporary solutions, contemporary initiative that tackles on these types of biases that's sipping into different aspects of society?
So I recently, with my friends, I watched a video of how AI is actually very dangerous. It is termed dangerous now. So what the actual video was about is it compared a lot of various AI websites. It gave the same prompt to every single website at the same time, again and again and again. And at the end, it reached a stage where each and every one gave the same response. So do you think that AI at one point will keep giving us homogeneous responses, as in even in design, it will start giving us the same responses for each and every problem we provided? Are all designs going to be the same? Like all designers going to have the same designs, and creativity will just be lost if AI is taking over everything?
I think I'll answer in two ways. The engineering answer for that is, well, we can introduce more randomness into the model so that it answers a little bit different way. So we can come up with a computational system that it has a little bit more creative behavior. But that's, I think, another cop-out answer to what you're asking. I think the real thing is that we have to do the hard work. Don't just sit and, we've kind of done this with Wikipedia and Google Images too. When those tools came in a world of design and education, there were a very specific way that faculties and students approach information that was available on Wikipedia and Google Images. We don't even think about those things as a threat into creative process anymore. So AI systems, similar way. I think if we're just keep looking at the same images over and over again on our Instagrams and other apps, that is just regurgitating existing images, then our taste palette gonna be connected to that. But if you're in an education environment that encourages you to go out and engage and see and experience and bring that into your work, then we're gonna actually develop something different. And that's also how you're gonna stand out in this age of competition, because there's a lot of rush. The types of work that I show today is fringe. It's, yes, we're coming from Atlantic, ISDI, and Parsons. We're a big institution. But it's a fringe in the context of when a lot of people talk about AI in education, this is not how they talk about. They talk about automation. They talk about efficiency. Talk about AI becoming teachers and tutors. very different dynamics of knowledge creations and engagement. That world and paradigm will probably lead to harmonizations or standardization, I would say. Everybody gonna be able to do certain things at a certain level in a certain way, which is really good for corporations and government to think about. People are always doing the same thing. But if you wanna be different, if you wanna think different, if we wanna make something other than that, then we have to be in a different world.
So my question is related to biases in AI. So how much do you think emotional intelligence, collaboration with artificial intelligence, going to impact our design industry?
Good question. Yeah.
So we're talking about bias. How much the emotional intelligence and AI gonna impact the design industry?
Yeah, because seeing emotional intelligence, the developments happening in emotional intelligence are reducing all the biases or are more going towards focusing on one over the other part on the choices. How much do you think it's going to impact on the design field or the creative field where we are going to have numerous options or numerous thoughts, perspectives? How is it going to impact in that?
The computational system, even though we may perceive there's a sense of emotional feedback, computers don't have emotions. I think it's important for us to recognize that. We may have a relationship with relational artifacts and these artifact computational objects because it gives us a certain types of feedbacks and the way that we interact with it. But it's important to know that computer beings cannot provide an emotional supports or maturity that comes in a human to other species, human to humans or human to other species relationship. Computational species are very different kind. This is why there are a lot more research and work has been going into AI companions and AI relationship. And for many of us, with a lot of these agents, AI agents becoming more prevalent, we will encounter this dynamic more and more. But it's incredibly important for us to know that it may have an emotional communication cue, does not mean it actually has an emotion or it cares about people in a way that one can do. So in the development of those types of technologies and phenomena, what roles I would say that designers can play? Designers can be active in creating design systems and other ways to notify and to indicate that these technologies' limitations as we develop this sense of relationships, sense of connection with these technologies. We can design a safeguard and limitations of these tools for certain users. And most importantly, to understand that the sense of empathies and cares and passions that drives and creates important work and relationship that we have with others, there's no shortcut. AI system companions and collaborators and friends, they'll agree with you on a lot of things. And so we start thinking that, maybe relationships should be this smooth thing. It's not. Real relations is not a smooth thing. There's a struggle in that. But the beauty of that struggle is it shapes who we are. And then that friction in relationship is actually what makes a relationship meaningful and valuable. And that, we have to do it with naked eyes and with reality, not with synthetic bubbles of experience and products.
No one's talked about relationships so beautifully. I think that definitely deserves that.
So as of now, AI hasn't completely taken over design, but since AI is obviously still evolving and there's a lot of upcoming other AI platforms coming up, and the fact that it's easily available in the hands of a lot of people, which could result in corrupted use, I think. What do you think designers hold in the future?
Well, I think there's two aspects of how today's design is engaging and then how design education is evolving right now. One aspect is that by actively participating in what these tools are capable and not capable of, we as a society and in the field, different things standards are being developed within the field itself, and also regulations and things are developed. For instance, there's no designers today in creative profession, whether film writing, script writing, other things, their final output is AI generated. It's not, because as a industry standard, that's embarrassing, because it lacks a taste and curations and focus. It doesn't muster what brands are looking, it doesn't muster the artistic sense and creative sense and the reputation of the work. So there's a professional standards that says that work is not good enough. This goes back to this idea of me as an individual who are just starting may think that it looks good. It does not look good from the field itself. So there's that aspects of it, as within the industries and society, their standards are being developed. And along with that is within society itself, besides the norms, is the focus on regulations. So cigarettes exist in the society, has been predominant in the past, but as we understand its impacts on our personal health and others, there are regulations and standards being developed that limits those uses. Juul pops, the indoor smokings and those kind of hailing devices, when it got introduced, it rised in population, and then we come up with different regulations to contain that because of its health impact. So technologies always emerge, and when we identify those detrimental impacts and ones, in our case, creative capacities, I foresee that there are different regulations and things can happen. So if we are active about it. But in terms of education then, what kind of skills and things that we can focus on, especially the emerging creative designers, is that one aspect is actively paying attention to what these tools are capable of so that we are developing a new computational methodologies. I mean, even the interview was sharing that, yeah, maybe I'm able to talk these ideas through with large language model. That'll be my way of synthesizing some concept. So you can already see these computational new way of doing things can emerge with these technology. So as a designers and artists, you have to pay attention to those and then perhaps develop a new way of doing things. At the same time, because we can see what those methods can do, we can focus on the things that these methods, AI methodologies will never be able to do. And that is kind of a lot of the stories that we're talking about in terms of making connections and able to do things the hard way.
And I would like to ask that what impacts will design have, or what can a possible recession or global economic crisis have the impact on design or different domains of design? And like in such a situation, people tend to focus on the necessities of life. Like, so how can designers safeguard themselves from such a situation, or what can they provide? Like, how can they use their skill sets to even improve the situation around them?
Yeah, I think what's important to think about macroeconomic trends like global recessions and market contractions. Those things it's highly likely we are entering into one as we speak. In this kind of market dynamic, I think it's important to think about this is not something new, right? Market contraction has happened in the past, global recession has happened in the past. So not only we're entering one right now and then we're going to come out of it at some point, but we'll enter another one again. Throughout my career, throughout your career. The question then is, what types of skill sets and what types of capacity that I need to develop so that I'm able to navigate these economic and market uncertainty. And one of the key things that I want us to think about is don't think about the short-term skills and job market that exists right now as the outcomes of your work, but rather think about what are the capacity that I can build? What is the skills that is more long-term? What is a skill that is more applicable and then skills that is able to evolve is what you seek for. So specific example, one can learn how to do user experience and UI design of how we can create a digital apps experience to be relevant and more efficient and cuts down the cost and cuts down the times of engagement, like increase the times of engagement and cuts down the frustration. But that is a very 2000 specific types of challenges that we face with the smartphone interface in the market. But instead of it focusing on, I can do UI UX, you approach UI UX in a broader context of communication design and technology design. Then you're seeing it as I'm able to think beyond and think strategically about the broader experience and the need in the market. UI UX is a way to implement that broader strategy within a company or an organization or what you do. Then, as technology evolves, no longer we're using smartphone and then there are market demand for UI UX skill set, but they're going to have a new and different types of interfaces that requires a way to communicate and engage. You see how if you develop those longer capacity and a skill set that's much more grounded and directional, then doesn't matter where we are at the market, because you will find UI UX jobs may disappear with the both shifting of the technological landscape and with the market contraction. You still have a way to apply the communication design as a methods of new medium that exists. It's kind of like the slide that I shared earlier. In every domains and every different periods of technological shift, there has been a creative industry that always existed. It was just a different way that we found a way to express.
What's the boundary or the limit of AI until which it's safe to use? For example, at the end of the day, we are all humans. We need something named human factor. And when I'm boarding the plane, and if I see there's no pilots in there, and I see that it's self-driven, and I'm not really convinced to board that plane. So what's the max limit of the AI that it can overrule us? Like, what's the max extent of AI that we can, take it to?
That pilot example is very interesting because you may see the pilot sitting and helping with the takeoff. During the flight, pilots are usually just hanging out. You do know that, right? It's on autopilot. And then they grab the steering when they're going down, when they land. I think I had a similar experience. This is a third wave hipster cafe that I knew in Seoul when I was visiting there. And I was there 1 year before. It was a great cafe, wonderful espressos and wonderful drinks. They make great flat white. My wife loved it, and then we had a great time there. And then the following year that I visited the same cafe, because I had such a great experience of going to that cafe. And I guess the owner implemented those, at McDonald's, you do the tap screen. They implement that as a computerized system. I'm sure it optimized and do the inventory tracking in a very special way. But what that cafe experience done is then it separated me from barista. We're able to engage with someone who's going to make me this gorgeous cup of coffee, to talk about it, to understand, even though we don't have a long conversation, but to kind of see where this artisan is going to take me to. We're probably not going to go back to that cafe because at the end of the day, yeah, the quality of coffee was important, but it's about that where you deploy the technologies and how you make those connections very important. So in an ideal scenario, the owner could have implemented maybe a data analytics systems in the back end, while the humans can interact to facilitate the human connections. Maybe there are some other image models and other things to capture the interactions, and then you can optimize your stores and opening hours and other aspects could be more technological implementation more important. So where does design fits in? I think the designer would have noticed that. I think the system designer would have noticed that. Experienced designers would have noticed that. Business strategists would have noticed that. Product designers would have noticed that. Communication designer would have noticed that obvious way that in this situation AI can do and what AI cannot do. The limitation within the context upon which we are operating is it actually destroying the ecosystem in the business environment of that coffee itself? So as today's designers then, I don't think about the world in that much of a binary of a limitations and what's capable, what's not capable of. The visual cue of a pilot sitting as I'm boarding, that is very important, even though the AI system is going to take over and drive in the most of the flight. And then the fact that I know the human can always intervene is also, as a passenger, is very important. So thinking about what systems are capable of and where the stakeholders are, the role of a designer then is to understand those dynamics and able to orchestrate that experience, orchestrate that system. And that is the type of skills that is long-term, and that is the type of skills and capacity that an educational environment can create.
So we'd like to know how, given the ever-evolving tools and AI tools in design, how intelligent is artificial intelligence in the domain of design, and can it surpass human intelligence?
What is intelligence?
Exactly. What is intelligence? The capacity, the critical thinking capacity, the empathy the humans have to engage with the problem. Will artificial intelligence have that?
Yeah, I think there are going to be always in the fields and domains of engineering, they're trying to answer that questions of can AI system ever be intelligent in a context of some benchmark testings and able to do some problem solving in a very specific way. But even the most famous test in the world of computer science and AI research is called Turing test. Anybody familiar with Turing test? Yes, no, yes, no? I see a hand. What is Turing test?
Turing test is a test that can tell machines and humans apart.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So very simple example of two people are sitting, they don't know whether the information that's passing to us, it was made by a machine or made by humans. And it passed the Turing test if the human cannot tell it from one thing to the another. What's interesting from the field of creativity is that discernment of what can pass, what cannot pass, get a little bit more nuanced when a person who are evaluating has a domain expertise in that area. So for instance, if I look at a graphic design pieces, a rendering, I can probably still tell AI system has generated because I can see different visual cues that go along with these kind of generative AI systems. I'm sure they're going to get better at it, but right now I can tell it. But someone who is not attuned to looking at a lot of computer-generated images and visual design, they may not be able to tell at all. So from the context of how we operate, what we assign notions of intelligence and creativity, from the social cultural perspective, there is an aspect of relativity that kicks in. But that still leaves a broader questions of how far this technology can go and what is possible. I would argue that a lot of this technology is going to continue to evolve in a way that's going to supersede what the discernment of a certain field can do. Even the text to video generation example that I was putting on a GIF earlier, we never thought that's going to be possible 3 years ago when we're doing it with the text and image and text and video generation. Look at the quality of which coming out now. Still, the commercial director will say that's not a good visual composition, but my eyes, it passed it, and then I don't have that kind of skill set. But the question then is, in this world of synthetic medias and computation, what roles then an intellectuals play? What roles an educational institution play? Also, within the ecosystem of educators and intellectuals, and creative in the society, how can we shape the society in a way to be able to discern those changes and able to engage in a meaningful way so that we don't forget what really matters? Because a computational system, at the end of the day, similar to the human relationship discussion, does not have types of emotions and connections that humans are capable of. It's an equivalent of asking my cat, can my cat able to come and play violin? Sadly, my cat cannot. As a species, it cannot. Both physically it's not possible, and also as a being, it doesn't do music that way. It meows a certain way, but it doesn't produce music that way. So the machine systems I think about in the same way too. It would be really good at mimicking and producing a certain things, but that does not mean it has the same characteristic as humans. So we're entering into the world of, to an extent, what's been considered as a multi-species world. We already live in a multi-species environment. We don't talk about it, we don't think about it, unless it's in the specific context that we operate. But more and more recognitions of both natural species and these computational species can lead to a better understanding and better types of system thinking that can afford humanity better.
But I do want to close this on to a world which is more authentic, to a world which is where we have real aircrafts with real pilots, to a world where we have real coffee with real connections. So thank you so much, Jeongki, for this wonderful session today. And thank you to all the students, to parents, to educators, art teachers, and my team that's come together to really put this show together. We could have done this on Zoom. We could have had a meta of Jeongki, but I think the human connections are still real, and I hope they continue to be. So once again, thank you everyone, and wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, Jeongki.